Hi, I'm Allison Hale, 28 years old, and I never thought I'd be telling this story. Picture this: a family dinner at my parents' house. Everyone laughing, plates clinking until my sister's hand cracked across my face. My cheek burned, the room froze, and she had the nerve to say I was overreacting. My parents. They just sat there, eyes glued to their plates, not saying a word. I was stunned, humiliated, my heart pounding as the silence choked the air. That moment flipped my world upside down. It wasn't just a slap. It unraveled years of lies, favoritism, and a family secret I'd been blind to. What happened next? It changed everything, and she never came back. What would you do if you were in my situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Stick around to hear how I uncovered the truth and took a stand. The weekend started out so normal. I was at my parents' house in suburban Tulsa, Oklahoma for a family dinner, the kind we'd had 100 times before. The table was set, plates piled with fried chicken and mashed potatoes, the air thick with chatter and the smell of cornbread. And this was supposed to be a casual catch-up with my family. But as usual, my sister Brenda had other plans. Brenda is 32, 4 years older than me, and a full-time fashion influencer with thousands of followers. She's always been the golden child in our family, the one who could do no wrong. Growing up, I'd watch my mother Beverly and my father Ronald shower her with praise for every little thing: her grades, her looks, her spark. Me, I was the quiet one, the one who got good grades, but never the spotlight. That dinner, though, Brenda took things to a new level. She showed up with her phone on a tripod, lights glaring, turning our family dinner into her personal content factory. "Hold your plates higher, it's for the aesthetic," she barked, adjusting her camera. My mother Beverly just nodded, her eyes glowing with pride. "Isn't she creative?" she said, passing the green beans. My father Ronald chimed in, "Brenda's building her brand, Allison. You should support her." I bit my tongue, feeling that familiar sting of being pushed to the side. The dining room felt like a stage, and Brenda was the star. She directed us like actors: smile here, laugh there, tilt your head for the shot. My husband Owen, a military officer, sat next to me, his jaw tight. He's not one for drama, but I could tell he was annoyed. "This is a family dinner, not a photo shoot," he muttered under his breath. I squeezed his hand, hoping to keep the peace. Brenda's followers were her world, and she'd built this perfect online image: polished, glamorous, always in control. She'd post about family values and togetherness, but in person, it was all about her. That night, she was filming for some sponsored post, something about authentic family moments. Authentic hardly. She'd spent 20 minutes rearranging the table to look rustic, even swapping out Mom's good china for some thrifted plates she brought. Beverly ate it up, saying Brenda's got such an eye for this. Ronald just smiled, like always, avoiding any hint of conflict. I tried to focus on the food, but Brenda's voice cut through. "Allison, move your elbow, you're blocking the shot." I looked up, caught off guard. "Seriously," I said, my voice sharper than I meant. Beverly shot me a look, the kind that said, "Don't ruin this." Ronald kept eating, pretending not to hear. Owen leaned closer, whispering, "Just let it go." But it wasn't just the elbow thing, it was years of Brenda being the center of everything. Growing up, it was always the same. Brenda's dance recitals got standing ovations. My science fair wins got a pat on the back. When she started her influencer gig, Mom and Dad practically threw her a parade. "She's going places," they'd say, while I was just there. I'd moved to Tulsa with Owen after years at military bases, thinking maybe I'd finally fit into the family. But that dinner showed me nothing had changed. Brenda kept filming, narrating like we were props in her story. "This is what family is all about," she said to her phone, flashing a fake smile. I could feel the tension building in my chest. Owen noticed his hand resting on mine, steady as ever. He's always been my rock, the one who sees through the nonsense. But even he couldn't stop what was coming. The room buzzed with Brenda's energy, her voice, her lights, her rules. Beverly kept praising her, saying, "You're so talented, honey." Ronald nodded along as if Brenda was curing world hunger instead of filming a dinner. I felt like I was disappearing, my place at the table shrinking with every second. I didn't know it then, but that night was about to crack open everything I thought I knew about my family. By the time dessert came out, Mom's peach cobbler, which Brenda insisted on styling for a photo, I was done playing along. I wanted to say something, anything to make it stop. But I held back, not wanting to start a fight. Owen gave me a look, the kind that said he'd back me up no matter what. I took a deep breath, thinking maybe I could get through this. But Brenda wasn't done pushing, and I wasn't ready for how far she'd go. I couldn't stay silent anymore. I'd had enough of Brenda turning our family dinner into her personal stage. "Brenda, can you stop filming for 1 second?" I said, my voice sharp but steady. The table went quiet. Brenda's eyes narrowed, her perfectly glossed lips curling into a smirk. "Oh, come on, Allison. Don't be so dramatic," she said, waving her hand like I was a child throwing a tantrum. Beverly piped up, "Honey, let Brenda do her thing." Ronald nodded, still focused on his plate. I felt my face flush, the years of being sidelined bubbling up. "This isn't your content factory," I shot back, standing up. "This is supposed to be a family dinner." Brenda's smirk vanished. She set her phone down, stepped closer, and before I could react, her hand swung out, smacking my cheek with a sharp sting. The sound echoed in the room. I froze, my breath catching the burn spreading across my face. Beverly gasped, but said nothing. Ronald looked up, then down again, his fork still in hand. The silence was deafening, their inaction louder than Brenda's slap. "You're overreacting," Brenda said, her voice cold, like she'd just swatted a fly. She picked up her phone again, as if nothing happened. I stood there, heart-pounding, humiliation washing over me. My cheek throbbed, but it was their silence, Mom and Dad just sitting there, that cut deeper. I wanted to scream, to demand why they didn't care, but my throat tightened. Owen was already on his feet. His chair scraped the floor, his military posture, rigid eyes locked on Brenda. "Get out," he said, his voice low and unyielding, like he was giving an order on base. Brenda laughed, a short, mocking sound. "Seriously? You're kicking me out of Mom and Dad's house," she said, looking to Beverly for backup. Beverly fidgeted with her napkin, avoiding Owen's gaze. Ronald cleared his throat but stayed silent as always. I said, "Get out," Owen repeated, stepping closer to Brenda. His presence filled the room, steady and commanding. Brenda rolled her eyes, grabbed her tripod, and muttered, "This is ridiculous." She stormed toward the door, heels clicking, leaving her phone's light still glaring on the table. I stood rooted, my hand on my cheek, the sting fading, but the shock lingering. Beverly finally spoke, her voice shaky. "Allison, maybe you shouldn't have provoked her." I stared at her, disbelief twisting in my gut. Provoked her? I'd only asked for a normal dinner. Ronald added, "Let's not make a big deal out of this." Their words felt like a second slap, dismissing me, protecting Brenda just like always. Owen put his hand on my shoulder, grounding me. "We're leaving," he said, his tone final. I nodded, my legs shaky as we grabbed our coats. The dining room was still quiet. Beverly's eyes darting between us and the door Brenda had stormed through. Ronald didn't look up. I felt their silence follow us out, heavy and suffocating. As we walked to the car, my mind raced. Brenda's hand, Mom's excuses, Dad's avoidance. It wasn't just this night. It was years of this pattern, years of me being invisible. Owen opened the car door for me, his face set. "She's not getting away with this," he said. I nodded, but inside I wasn't sure what to feel: anger, hurt, or something deeper I couldn't name yet. We drove off the Tulsa suburbs, fading behind us. I kept replaying that moment, Brenda's smirk, the sting of her hand, my parents' blank faces. Something had broken, and it wasn't just the dinner. I didn't know it then, but that slap was only the start of unraveling everything I thought I knew about my family. We pulled into our driveway, the quiet of our house, a stark contrast to the chaos we'd left. Owen turned off the engine, his face tight. "You okay?" he asked, his voice soft but steady. I nodded, but my chest felt hollow. "I don't understand why they didn't say anything," I whispered. Owen reached for my hand, his grip firm. "They should have stood up for you," he said. "That wasn't right." Inside, I sank onto the couch, my phone buzzing almost immediately. It was Beverly. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but I needed answers. "Mom." I answered, my voice shaky. Her tone was light, almost cheerful, like she was calling to chat about the weather. "Allison, honey, you didn't have to leave like that," she said. "You're making this bigger than it needs to be." I froze, gripping the phone tighter. "Bigger than it needs to be," I repeated. "Mom, Brenda hit me. In front of everyone." Beverly sighed, the kind of sigh she used when I was a kid, who wouldn't listen. "You know how Brenda gets," she said. "She's under a lot of pressure with her work. You shouldn't have challenged her like that. You overreacted." Overreacted. The word hit like a punch. I'd stood up for myself, asked for one night without her cameras, and now I was the one who'd overreacted. "Mom." "She slapped me," I said, my voice rising. "And you and Dad just sat there." Beverly paused, then said, "Let's not blow this out of proportion. Families have disagreements. You need to let it go." I hung up my hands, shaking. Her words echoed Brenda's. "You're overreacting," and it felt like they were ganging up on me. Owen sat beside me, his arm around my shoulders. "What did she say?" he asked. I recounted the call, every word spilling out. "She's protecting Brenda," I said, my voice breaking. "Like always." Owen's jaw clenched. "That's not okay," he said. "You don't deserve this." His words were a lifeline, but I couldn't shake the betrayal. My own mother choosing Brenda's side, dismissing what happened like it was nothing. I paced the living room, my thoughts spiraling. Had I provoked Brenda? Was I too sensitive? Growing up, I'd always been the one to keep the peace, to step back so Brenda could shine. Maybe I'd been too quick to speak up at dinner. Maybe I should have just let her film. The doubts crept in, gnawing at me. I looked at Owen, his steady gaze pulling me back. "You didn't do anything wrong," he said, as if reading my mind. "She crossed a line." My phone buzzed again, a text from Ronald. "Allison, let's move past this," it read. "Brenda didn't mean any harm. Come back tomorrow, we'll talk." I stared at the screen, my stomach twisting. Didn't mean any harm. I could still feel the sting on my cheek, the weight of their silence. My father, always the peacemaker, was brushing it off too. I showed Owen the text, and he shook his head. "They're enabling her," he said. "This isn't on you." I sat back down, my mind a mess. Beverly's call. Ronald's text. They were trying to make me feel like I was the problem. I'd spent years swallowing my feelings, letting Brenda take center stage, but this felt different. This wasn't just favoritism, it was betrayal. They'd seen what she did and chose to protect her, not me. I felt like I was losing my family, or maybe I'd never really had them. Owen pulled me close, his voice calm but firm. "We'll figure this out," he said. "You're not alone." I nodded, but the hurt lingered. I couldn't stop thinking about Beverly's words, Ronald's texts, the way they dismissed me. It made me question everything, my place in the family, my own judgment. I didn't know it then, but that night was the beginning of seeing my family for who they really were. The next morning felt heavy. I woke up with a knot in my stomach, the events of the dinner still clinging to me like a bad dream. Owen was already up making coffee in the kitchen, his steady presence a quiet comfort. I checked my phone, hoping for something, maybe an apology from Beverly, or even Ronald stepping up for once. Instead, there was a text from my father sent late last night. "Allison, it was just a misunderstanding," it read. "Brenda didn't mean to upset you. Let's put this behind us." I stared at the words, my heart sinking. A misunderstanding, she'd hit me, and he was calling it that. I showed Owen the text, my hands trembling. "He's acting like it was nothing," I said, my voice low. Owen set his mug down, his eyes narrowing. "That's not a misunderstanding," he said. "That's them refusing to hold her accountable." I nodded, but a part of me wondered if I was blowing this out of proportion. Maybe Dad was right. Maybe I needed to let it go. The doubt crept in, twisting my thoughts. Then my phone pinged again. It was Brenda, a long message that made my jaw clench. "Allison, I'm sorry if you felt hurt last night," she wrote. "I was stressed, you know how my work gets. You kind of pushed me into a corner with your attitude. Can we just move on?" I read it twice, my blood boiling. If I felt hurt. Her words were careful, polished, like one of her Instagram captions, but there wasn't an ounce of real remorse. It was all blame shifting, making me the problem for standing up to her. "Owen, look at this," I said, handing him the phone. He scanned the message, his face hardening. "That's not an apology," he said. "She's trying to flip this on you." He was right, but her words still stung, poking at that old wound of always being second to her. Growing up, Brenda's tantrums were always excused, her bad days, her stress, her passion. I'd been taught to step aside to keep the peace. Now she was doing it again, and my parents were letting her. I paced the kitchen, my thoughts racing. Why do they always defend her? I asked, more to myself than Owen. He leaned against the counter, his voice calm but firm. "Because it's easier for them," he said. "They don't want to deal with her drama, so they put it on you." His words hit hard, cutting through the fog of doubt. He was right. Beverly and Ronald had always taken the path of least resistance, leaving me to carry the weight. My phone rang, and Beverly's name flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail, not ready for another round of her excuses. When I played it back, her voice was soft, almost pleading. "Allison, your dad told me he texted you. Brenda feels awful, honey. She didn't mean it. You know she's got a lot on her plate. Call me back, okay?" I deleted the message, my chest tightening. Awful. Brenda's text didn't sound like someone who felt awful. It sounded like someone covering her tracks. I sat down, staring at the table. The doubts were louder now. Had I pushed Brenda too far? Was I making too big a deal out of this? I'd spent my whole life trying to fit into my family, to be the good daughter, the one who didn't cause trouble. Maybe I'd been too quick to call her out at dinner. Maybe I should have just stayed quiet. Owen sat across from me, his eyes steady. "Don't let them do this to you," he said. "You're not the one who messed up." She is. His words pulled me back like a lifeline. I took a deep breath, trying to hold on to that clarity. But it wasn't easy. Beverly's voicemail, Ronald's text, Brenda's fake apology. They were all working together, making me question my own feelings. It felt like they were trying to rewrite what happened to make me doubt what I knew was true. I didn't want to believe my family could do this, but the evidence was right there in my phone. Owen reached for my hand, his grip strong. "You're stronger than this," he said. "We'll get through it together." I nodded, but the weight of their words lingered. I didn't know it then, but their attempts to twist the truth were just the beginning of something much bigger. I was sitting at the kitchen table picking at a cold piece of toast, still rattled from Brenda's so-called apology and my parents' attempts to brush everything under the rug. My phone buzzed again. The notification was from my best friend Denise Cole, a text with a screenshot attached. "You need to see this," she wrote. My stomach twisted as I opened the image, a post from Brenda's Instagram, her perfectly curated feed, now a stage for her latest performance. The post was a photo of Brenda, her eyes misty, sitting in what looked like her apartment with a soft filter. The caption read, "Sometimes family misunderstandings hurt the most. I'm taking time to heal from last night's drama. Thanks for your support." My jaw dropped. Misunderstandings heal from drama. She was painting herself as the victim, twisting the story to make it seem like I'd wronged her. I handed the phone to Owen, my hands shaking. "She's lying to her followers," I said, my voice tight. Owen's eyes scanned the screen, his expression darkening. "She's playing the martyr," he said, tossing the phone onto the table. "This is what she does, controls the narrative." I stared at the post, the likes and comments piling up. "Sending you love, Brenda," one said. "Stay strong, ignore the haters." Another read, "Haters." Was that supposed to be me? I felt a surge of anger, hot and sharp, at how easily she'd flipped the truth. I texted Denise back. "How did you find this?" She replied instantly. "She posted it this morning." "I follow her account, thought you should know." Denise had always been my rock, the one who saw through Brenda's charm even when we were kids. She'd been at enough family dinners to know how things worked, how Brenda always came out on top. "This is low even for her," Denise added. I nodded to myself, gripping my phone. Low didn't even begin to cover it. I scrolled through Brenda's post again, each word like a jab. She'd called it a misunderstanding, the same word Ronald had used in his text. It wasn't a coincidence, it was calculated. She was building a story for her followers, one where she was the wronged party, the sensitive soul hurt by her dramatic sister. I could almost hear her voice, smooth and practiced, selling this lie to thousands of strangers. My chest tightened, the betrayal cutting deeper than before. "Owen, she's making it sound like I attacked her," I said, my voice rising. He leaned forward, his hands clasped. "She's trying to save face," he said. "Her brand's all about being perfect. She can't admit she messed up." He was right, but it didn't make it hurt less. Brenda's whole life was a performance, and now she was dragging me into it, turning our family mess into her next viral moment. I clicked on the comments, unable to stop myself. "You don't deserve this," Brenda, one follower wrote. Another said, "Family can be so toxic." Toxic, I wanted to scream. I was the one who'd been hit, the one whose parents did nothing. Yet here she was, spinning it to make me the villain. I threw my phone down, my hands trembling with frustration. "How does she get away with this?" I asked Owen. He shook his head. "She won't," he said, his voice steady. "Not if we don't let her." Denise called, then her voice sharp with indignation. "Allison, this is ridiculous," she said. "She's out here playing the victim while you're dealing with the fallout. You can't let her rewrite this." I paced the kitchen, my mind racing. "What am I supposed to do?" I asked. "Call her out online. That's her game, not mine." Denise paused, then said, "You don't have to play her game, but you need to do something. She's not just lying to her followers, she's lying to everyone." I hung up my thoughts, spinning. Denise was right. I couldn't just sit here while Brenda twisted the truth, but confronting her online felt wrong, like stepping into her world of filters and hashtags. I looked at Owen, who was watching me closely. "What do you think?" I asked. He leaned back, his military calm kicking in. "You don't need to go public yet," he said. "But you need to call her out to her face. She can't hide from that." I nodded, but the idea of facing Brenda made my stomach churn. She'd always had a way of turning things around, making me feel small. I could already imagine her brushing me off, saying I was overreacting again. But Denise's screenshot was burning a hole in my mind, and Owen's steady gaze gave me a spark of courage. I didn't know it then, but seeing that post was the push I needed to stop letting Brenda control the story. That afternoon, I drove to meet my cousin Faye Klein at a coffee shop in downtown Tulsa. Faye had always been the blunt one in the family, the one who didn't sugarcoat things. If anyone knew more about Brenda's past, it was her. The coffee shop was quiet, the smell of roasted beans cutting through the tension in my chest. Faye was already there, her dark hair pulled back, sipping a latte. "Hey, Allison," she said, her eyes narrowing as I sat down. "You look like you haven't slept." I managed a weak smile, then spilled everything: Brenda's slap, my parents' dismissal, her fake apology, and the Instagram post Denise had sent me. Faye leaned back, her face grim. "That sounds like Brenda," she said, her voice low. "What do you mean?" I asked, my heart picking up. Faye set her cup down, glancing around like she was making sure no one could hear. "This isn't the first time she's pulled something like this," she said. "When we were teenagers, Brenda had a temper. She'd lash out, push, shove, even hit people when she didn't get her way. Aunt Beverly and Uncle Ronald always covered for her. They'd call it passion or stress, never her fault." I stared at her, my stomach churning. "Hit people?" I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Faye nodded. "Yeah. Once at a family barbecue, she shoved our cousin Paula into a table because Paula spilled soda on her dress. Everyone saw it, but Beverly said it was an accident. Ronald changed the subject. They made excuses, and Brenda got away with it." I gripped my coffee cup, the heat burning my fingers. I'd been too young to remember that barbecue clearly, but the story felt like a puzzle piece snapping into place. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" I asked. Faye shrugged, her expression bitter. "They didn't want to ruin her image. Brenda was always their star, perfect grades, perfect smile. They couldn't let her look bad." Her words hit hard, echoing the favoritism I'd felt my whole life. But this was different. This wasn't just Brenda being the golden child. It was a pattern of behavior hidden by my parents to protect her. I drove home, my mind racing. Owen was in the living room reading a book, but he set it down when he saw my face. "What happened?" he asked. I told him everything Faye had said. Brenda's past outbursts, my parents' cover-ups. His jaw tightened. "They've been enabling her for years," he said. "No wonder she thinks she can do whatever she wants." I nodded, but I wasn't just angry, I was determined. Brenda's lies weren't just about that night. They were part of something bigger, and I needed proof. I called Denise, my best friend, to see if she knew anything else. "Faye's right," Denise said over the phone. "I remember Brenda losing it at a school dance once, screaming at a girl who bumped into her. Your parents showed up, smoothed it over with the teachers, and it was like it never happened. I felt a chill. How had I missed this? Had I been so used to Brenda's spotlight that I didn't see what was behind it? I started digging. I texted Paula, our cousin, asking about the barbecue Faye mentioned. Her reply came quickly. Yeah. Brenda pushed me hard. I was 12. Your mom told me not to make a big deal out of it. I sat back, my heart pounding. Paula's words were another thread in the pattern. I asked if she had any old photos or videos from that day, something to back it up. She promised to look through her parents' old albums and let me know. Next, I checked Brenda's old social media posts, scrolling back years. There wasn't much. She'd curated her image carefully, but I found a few vague captions from high school, things like learning to rise above negativity with heart emojis. They felt like echoes of her recent post, a way to spin her outbursts into something noble. I saved screenshots, my fingers trembling with purpose. If I was going to confront Brenda, I needed more than memories. I needed evidence. Owen watched me, his eyes steady. You're building a case, he said, a hint of pride in his voice. Just be careful. She's not going to like this. I nodded, but I wasn't backing down. Faye's story, Paula's confirmation, Denise's memory, they were pieces of a truth my family had buried. I didn't know it then, but gathering those pieces was the first step toward taking back my voice. The doorbell rang. I froze, my coffee mug halfway to my lips, the weight of the past few days still heavy on my shoulders. Owen glanced at me from the couch, his book set aside. You expecting anyone? He asked, his voice low. I shook my head, my pulse quickening. I walked to the door, peering through the peephole. Brenda stood there, her arms crossed, sunglasses perched on her head like she was ready for a photo shoot. My stomach knotted, but I opened the door. Brenda, I said, my voice flat. She didn't smile, just stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. We need to talk, she said, her tone sharp, like she was the one owed an explanation. Owen stood, his presence steady but tense, and I noticed him slip his phone into his pocket. I didn't know it then, but he'd already pressed record. She sat on the edge of our armchair, her posture stiff. Look, Allison, I came to clear the air, she said, flipping her hair back. That night got out of hand. Okay? I didn't mean for things to escalate. I stared at her, waiting for something resembling remorse. Instead, her eyes were hard, her lips pursed. You slapped me, I said, keeping my voice steady. In front of Mom and Dad. That's not just escalating. Brenda sighed like I was exhausting her. I was under a lot of pressure, she said. My content schedule's insane, and you calling me out in front of everyone didn't help. I snapped, okay, it happens. My jaw tightened. Snapped. That was her excuse. I leaned forward, my hands gripping the armrests of my chair. You hit me because of your content, I asked, disbelief lacing my words. That's your reason? She shrugged, unapologetic. You don't get it, she said. My brand is everything. One bad day can ruin months of work. I'm not saying it was right, but you pushed me into a corner. Her words were like a slap all over again, casual and dismissive, as if my pain was just collateral damage for her image. I glanced at Owen, his face unreadable, but his eyes locked on Brenda, his phone still in his pocket. You posted about it online, I said, my voice rising. Called it a misunderstanding, made yourself the victim. You didn't even apologize properly. Brenda's eyes narrowed. I said I was sorry, she snapped. What more do you want? You're blowing this way out of proportion, Allison. Always so dramatic. I felt a surge of anger, hot and sharp, at how easily she turned it around, making me the problem. Owen stepped closer, his voice calm but firm. "You don't get to decide how she feels about this," he said. "You crossed a line, Brenda, and you're not even owning it." Brenda rolled her eyes, standing up. "Oh, please, Owen," she said. "This isn't your fight. Stay out of it." He didn't flinch, just crossed his arms. "It's my fight when you hurt my wife," he said, his tone unyielding. I took a deep breath, the stories from Faye and Denise flashing through my mind. "This isn't the first time, is it?" I said, staring at Brenda. "Faye told me about the barbecue, how you shoved Paula. Denise mentioned the school dance. You've done this before, and Mom and Dad always covered for you." Brenda's face froze for a split second, then she laughed, a sharp, mocking sound. "You're digging up ancient history now," she said. "That's pathetic, Allison." "It's not pathetic," I shot back. "It's a pattern. You lash out, they protect you, and I'm left picking up the pieces." Brenda's smile faded, her eyes cold. "You're just jealous," she said. "Always have been. I work hard for what I have, and you can't handle it." Her words stung, but they didn't shake me. Not this time. I'd heard enough, seen enough to know she was deflecting. Owen's hand rested on my shoulder, grounding me. "We're done here," he said to Brenda. "You need to leave." She grabbed her purse, her heels clicking as she headed for the door. "You're making a mistake," she said, turning back to me. "Keep pushing this, and you'll regret it." The door slammed behind her, the sound echoing in the quiet house. I sank onto the couch, my heart racing. Owen pulled his phone out, stopping the recording. "Got it all," he said, his voice steady. I looked at him, relief mixing with the anger still burning in my chest. A letter arrived. It was late morning, and I was sorting through the mail when I saw the crisp envelope with Brenda's name on the return address. My hands shook as I opened it, revealing a typed letter from her lawyer accusing me of defamation. It claimed my false statements about the incident were damaging her reputation and brand, demanding I retract them or face legal action. My heart sank. Brenda wasn't just fighting back, she was trying to silence me. I called Owen into the kitchen, showing him the letter. His jaw clenched as he read it. "She's bluffing," he said, his voice steady but angry. "This is intimidation, not a real case." I nodded, but the words on the page, phrases like irreparable harm and legal consequences, felt like a weight pressing down on me. Brenda was using her resources to scare me, and it was working. I reached out to my lawyer, Sally Hart, a sharp woman I'd known since high school. Her office was a short drive from our house in Tulsa, and she agreed to meet us that afternoon. When we arrived, Sally was already at her desk, her glasses perched low as she skimmed the letter. "This is aggressive," she said, her tone matter of fact. "But it's thin. Defamation requires proof of false statements made with malice. Let's see what you've got to counter this." I laid out everything, the recording from Brenda's visit where she admitted to the slap and showed no remorse. The screenshots of her Instagram post framing herself as the victim. Faye's story about Brenda's past behavior. Paula's confirmation of the barbecue incident, and Denise's memory of the school dance. Sally listened, taking notes, her expression focused. "This is solid," she said. "The recording alone is damning. She admits to the act, which undercuts her claim that you're lying." Owen leaned forward, his arms crossed. "Can we use this to shut her down?" he asked. Sally tapped her pen against her notepad. "Not just yet," she said. "We need to respond carefully, show we're not intimidated, but also avoid escalating this publicly. If she wants to play dirty, we'll be ready." I felt a flicker of relief. Sally's confidence was grounding, a reminder that Brenda's threats weren't the end of the road. Back home, I sat at the dining table staring at the letter again. The accusations stung not just because they were false, but because they came from my sister. I'd spent years trying to keep the peace, but Brenda was willing to drag me through a legal battle to protect her image. Owen sat beside me, his hand on my arm. "We've got this," he said. "She's not going to win." I nodded, but the fear lingered a knot in my chest. Sally called the next day outlining our response. "We'll draft a letter demanding she drop the threat," she said. "We'll reference the recording and the witnesses, Faye, Paula, Denise, without disclosing everything. It shows we're serious, but keeps our cards close." I agreed, trusting her to navigate the legal maze. She emailed a draft by evening, and I read it carefully, impressed by its firm tone. It stated that Brenda's claims were baseless, that we had evidence proving the truth of my statements, and that any lawsuit would expose her own actions. I sent Sally a few tweaks emphasizing that I didn't want to back down. She incorporated them and sent the final version to Brenda's lawyer. Waiting for a response was torture. Every time my phone pinged, I braced for another threat. Owen kept me steady, reminding me we had the upper hand. "She's scared," he said one night as we sat on the couch. "That's why she's doing this. You're not the weak link she thinks you are." I thought about Faye's words about how my parents had always covered for Brenda. This letter felt like an extension of that, another attempt to make me the problem, to bury the truth. But I wasn't alone anymore. With Sally's expertise, Owen's support, and the evidence we'd gathered, I felt a spark of defiance. Brenda could threaten all she wanted, but I was ready to fight back. With Sally's guidance, I compiled the evidence: Owen's recording of Brenda's unapologetic admission, screenshots of her Instagram post, Faye's account of the barbecue incident, Paula's confirmation, and Denise's memory of the school dance. I drafted an email to Brenda's management company, a big-name agency that handled her sponsorships. My hands trembled as I attached the files, but I hit send knowing there was no turning back. I called Denise and Paula to our house that evening, needing their support before the fallout hit. Denise arrived first, her eyes blazing with determination. "You did the right thing," she said, hugging me tightly. "She can't keep getting away with this." Paula nodded, her face somber as she sat on the couch. "I wish I'd spoken up sooner," she said. After that barbecue, I was scared to cross her. I squeezed her hand, grateful for their honesty. It felt like we were finally breaking the silence my family had enforced for years. Owen sat quietly, his presence steady as always. "The company will have to act," he said. "They can't ignore this kind of evidence." I hoped he was right, but the wait was agonizing. I kept checking my email, expecting a response, but nothing came that night. Instead, I shared the evidence with Denise and Paula, showing them the recording and screenshots. Denise's jaw dropped as she listened to Brenda's voice, cold and dismissive. "She really said that?" she asked, shaking her head. Paula's eyes widened. "That's her all right," she said. "Always twisting things." 2 days later, Sally called with news. The agency responded, she said, her voice calm but firm. "They're dropping Brenda. They said her actions violate their conduct policy and they're cutting ties to protect their brand." My heart raced, a mix of relief and disbelief washing over me. Brenda's whole career revolved around her image, and now it was crumbling. I thanked Sally, my voice shaky, and hung up, turning to Owen. "They canceled her contract," I said, still processing it. He smiled, a rare, proud grin. "Good," he said. "She brought this on herself." Word spread fast. Denise texted me the next morning saying Brenda's latest Instagram post, a vague rant about betrayal, was flooded with comments calling her out. Some followers had seen the agency's announcement, a curt statement about parting ways with Brenda due to recent developments. Paula called later, her voice hesitant. "People are talking," she said. "Cousins, aunts, even mom and dad, they're all distancing themselves from her." I leaned back in my chair, the weight of her words sinking in. Brenda, the family's golden child, was finally facing consequences. I checked Brenda's social media myself, unable to resist. Her follower count was dropping, and her usual flood of supportive comments had slowed to a trickle. A few loyal fans stuck by her, but others were blunt. "You can't treat people like that," one wrote. "Own up to your mistakes," said another. I felt a pang of guilt, wondering if I'd gone too far. But then I remembered her words, her threats, her refusal to take responsibility. This wasn't about revenge, it was about truth. Denise came over that afternoon, bringing coffee and her usual blunt honesty. "She's losing it," she said, scrolling through her phone. "Her sponsors are pulling out, and she's posting cryptic nonsense to save face." I nodded, sipping my coffee, my mind still spinning. Brenda's world was falling apart, and while part of me felt vindicated, another part ached for the sister I'd once looked up to. "Do you think she'll ever admit she was wrong?" I asked. Denise snorted. "Not a chance," she said. "But she's out of moves now." Paula texted me later saying she'd spoken to Faye. "Faye's telling everyone what Brenda did," she wrote. "No one's defending her anymore." I stared at the message, a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness settling in. My parents hadn't reached out, their silence louder than ever. I wondered if they were ashamed or if they still believed Brenda could do no wrong. Either way, their absence stung, a reminder of how deep their favoritism ran. Owen and I sat down that night, talking through what came next. "You did what you had to," he said, his hand resting on mine. "She tried to bury you, but you stood your ground." His words were a lifeline, pulling me back from the doubt creeping in. I hadn't just fought for myself, I'd fought for the truth, for Paula, for everyone Brenda had hurt and dismissed. Owen and I sat down one evening, the quiet of our Tulsa home, heavy with the weight of what came next. We agreed it was time to cut ties with the Hale family, not just Brenda, but mom and dad too. Their refusal to acknowledge the truth, even after everything, was a betrayal I couldn't forgive. I drafted a letter to my parents, my hand steady despite the ache in my chest. "I need space," I wrote, keeping it simple but firm. "Your silence has hurt me more than Brenda's actions ever could." Owen read it over, his eyes soft but resolute. "It's clear," he said. "They'll understand or they won't. Either way, you're doing what's right for us." I mailed it the next day, feeling a strange mix of relief and loss as it left my hands. The days that followed were quiet but not empty. I reached out to my mentor, Captain Martin Stone, a retired firefighter who'd guided me through tough times since I joined the department. Martin had a way of cutting through noise with plain wisdom. I met him at a diner near the station, the smell of fried eggs and coffee grounding me. "You've done the hard part," he said, his voice gravelly but warm. "Standing up to family takes guts. Now you build what's yours." His words stuck with me. Owen and I started focusing on our life together, free from the Hale family's shadow. We planned a trip to the Ozarks, something we'd always talked about but never done. The idea of hiking trails and quiet nights felt like a fresh start, a way to reclaim our time. Denise and Paula became our anchors, checking in with calls and visits. Denise brought her usual humor, joking about starting a book club to keep us busy. Paula shared stories of her own family struggles, reminding me I wasn't alone in setting boundaries. I thought about Brenda often, not with anger, but with a kind of distant sadness. Her social media had gone silent, her once vibrant posts replaced by a blank profile. Part of me wondered if she'd ever reflect on what happened, but I knew that wasn't my burden to carry. My parents never responded to my letter, their silence a final confirmation of where I stood. It hurt, but it also freed me. I didn't need their approval anymore. Martin invited us to a barbecue at his place, a small gathering with other firefighters and their families. The warmth of their laughter, the clink of bottles, and the smell of grilled burgers felt like a new kind of family, one built on respect, not obligation. Owen fit right in, swapping stories with Martin's crew. I watched him, my heart full, knowing we were carving out something real. One night, as Owen and I sat on our porch, the stars bright above Tulsa, I reflected on what I'd learned. Protecting myself meant more than fighting back. It meant choosing who I let into my life. Setting boundaries wasn't selfish. It was survival. Brenda's actions, my parents' inaction, had taught me that tolerating harm only invites more. I'd spent years trying to fit into their mold, but now I was done. I had Owen, Martin, Denise, Paula, people who saw me not the role I was supposed to play. I leaned against Owen, his arm around me. "We're okay," he said, his voice steady. I nodded, feeling the truth of it. We weren't just okay. We were stronger. I didn't know it then, but letting go of the Hale family was the start of building a life that was truly mine.